Hello and welcome everyone. Here we are. We're here today to talk about the January 13th ban and restricted announcement. So, no changes to any format besides Modern. In Modern, there were two really big changes and then one, I'm going to call it lackluster. The word I want to use is pointless, but I can kind of see where they're coming from. So, let's start with Mox Opal. So Mox Opal is kind of like Faithless Looting. It's a card that's been around in this format forever, and most people I think can agree that it was a part of a lot of very powerful decks, and it possibly on its own wasn't that big of a deal, but the decks that recently have come out playing Mox Opal seem to be a little too powerful. For example, Hardened Scales Affinity, traditional Affinity have existed for a very long time now. Well, traditional Affinity since the beginning of the format's conception, but Hardened Scales Affinity not quite as long. Both decks took advantage of Mox Opal, used it in a powerful way, but your hands that didn't draw Mox Opal were a little slower, but you could still win the game. Mox Opal wasn't a card that you had to have. However, in these Urza Thopter Sword, Urza Emery, Oko decks, Urza Control decks, in these decks, Mox Opal not only became ramp, but it was a lot more than that. It was a piece that allowed you to play your cards in a way that were very difficult to deal with. Personally, for me, I think Urza was the bigger culprit, but at the same time, I understand why Mox Opal is banned. So they kind of took two shots at the blue-green Urza decks because those are the highest winning, or highest trophying, I should say, decks on Magic Online right now. I will link the update in the description so you guys can read their specific reasons. I'm going to give you a brief breakdown as usual. Basically, the blue-green Urza deck was winning too much, and it was showing the format could not adjust to beat it. And so they needed to take some hits out of it. So, of course, Oko being one of them, Mox Opal being another. So, Mox Opal, one of those cards that had always kind of been annoying. Basically, just fast mana for free with very little deck building restraints. And I know what you're saying. I know what a lot of people are going to say, but you have to play so many artifacts. You have to have Metalcraft, blah, blah, blah. But keep in mind, along with Metalcraft, most of the decks you're going to play it in do not care about the consequence of having to play more artifacts because you're like Affinity. You already want to play Arcbound Ravager. You want to play Steel Overseer. You want to play, your crappy one-drop modular creature that I can't think of what it's called. You want to play all these cards, so Mox Opal is just a free mana source. It's, not a big deal. I'm glad to see it go. It was whatever. I don't think it needed to go, but I'm glad to see it go. And then you have Oko Thief of Crowns, who, personally, I'm not happy to see him go. I understand that he was a little too much for the format and probably should be banned, but I'm not a fan of him being banned. I like playing Oko. Oko's fun to play. Not so much fun to play against, admittedly. And while I agree Standard needed to get rid of him, I don't think he needed to go in Modern. I think you really needed to cut the cards that were the real problems. I think Urza and Mox Opal should have been the hits. I think while Oko definitely kind of flooded other archetypes that were powerful, I like the idea that it's creating other archetypes like the blue-green Titan deck. I like that. Anyway, Mox Opal banned. Oko Thief of Crowns banned for the fact that it was played so often, reaching up to being played in 40% of decks competitively. That's just ridiculous. That's a lot. The last top 8 of the of over the weekend, the GP. I want to say it was like in Houston or somewhere in Texas, Austin maybe. I don't remember. But anyway, there was like 26 or 23 copies of Oko in the top 8. Does that sound right? I'm not sure. Somewhere around that number. It was a lot. It was a lot of copies of Oko. It's like, that's crazy. And the SCG event was similar. Had a lot of copies of Oko. So he's banned for diversity's sake for being a little too powerful, being oppressive. Of course, he definitely made it hard for other mid-range control decks to play against him. I mean, we've seen it how many times where we played grindy blue decks, or grindy decks in general, and we just couldn't beat Oko unless we had the perfect draws. So, I agree with Oko that it needed to happen. I wish it wouldn't have. I wish they would just ban Urza, and we'd got to keep Oko. Next, of course, or lastly, is Mycosynth Lattice. Now, of course, with Karn the Great Creator, you have a 2-part combo that you can basically win the game if your opponent can't attack and kill your Karn, which that's pretty difficult to do when the decks that are surrounding, or the decks that are playing Karn are all decks with, or not all, but most decks are with big creatures that can block well. You know, the Super Friend decks are playing like Urza and artifacts in the blue-green shells. Your Tron decks, you have Green Tron, which is also playing Wormcoils, Dragtusks, Ulamogs, World Breakers. And then you got the Eldrazi decks that are playing Thought-Knot Seers, Reality Smashers. There are a lot of ways to protect Karn. So admittedly, it's not a lot of fun, and that seems to be the reason why they banned it. Is it's not very fun, and it's no real opportunity or no real deck building cost to playing it. And while I disagree to some extent, I think there is a cost to not having a sideboard. People could just play 1 or 2 artifacts in their sideboard and play it, 13-card sideboard, and it would still be pretty ridiculous just to be able to fetch up the Lattice. Also, it being such an easy combo, basically a 1-card combo, with losing a slot in your sideboard, it can splash into so many different decks. I mean, we've seen it in Tron, we've seen it in Eldrazi Tron, we've seen it in Teamer colors, we've seen it in blue-green colors, we've seen it with Oko Super Friend type decks, with Urza decks. These decks just make it easy to play Karn. And, admittedly, it's not great. It kind of sucks. But I think the choice of banning it for the sake of it not being fun, I don't like it. I don't like banning it. I think it's kind of pointless. I don't think it was by any means too ridiculous or too unfair. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe with Oko gone, maybe it'd become too much. Who knows? I don't think so. But I definitely think it is. It was fine. I am very disappointed to see there was no unbannings. I would really have liked to have seen an unbanning. Specifically, I would have liked to have seen Splinter Twin unbanned. I think Splinter Twin is a card that's completely within power in the formats. As far as other cards I would like seeing banned, like I said, I'd rather have seen Urza go than Oko, or Oko and Urza. Mardu Pyromancer was a fun mid-range deck that was very popular, and it was a pretty good deck. And now, without Faithless Looting, the deck has basically been rendered to being a Mardu mid-range Stoneblade or Dreadhorde Arcanist deck, which I think is still fun. I still like playing Mardu Stoneblade. I think that's a fun deck, but it's not as good. And then I like trying to play the old-fashioned deck with Ransack the Lab now instead of Faithless Looting. You just lose a lot of momentum. It's a lot slower. The deck feels a lot more expensive, a lot more bulky. This doesn't feel as good. And that's what I think is going to happen with Mox Opal. I think the affinity decks are going to be maybe not wiped off the face of the earth, but severely hampered by this. At least to some extent. Now, I hope I'm wrong. I hope the Hardened Scales and traditional affinity find a way to cope without it. Another big topic that is bothering a lot of people is the fact that Wizards ban basically, Mox Opals that are $100 cards And then Okos that, were pretty expensive for a set. And while I think that Wizards should have some kind of sense of the fact that, like, these cards are incredibly expensive and not everyone is so lucky to be able to play whatever deck they want. And that's it. Online's very different than in paper. Paper, it's not easy to rent a deck. You can't just go and rent cards for, $30 a month and then return them and play a different deck. It's not easy to get the deck you want to play. So when people save their money and buy these cards, it feels really bad when they ban them. Now, admittedly for me, I feel like Mox Opal's a long time coming, and that's why I never would have bought a Mox Opal deck if I was playing paper. But that's just me, I definitely think that Mox Opal should have been banned a long, long time ago. Just because it's the kind of card that I think is doing a little too much, and it makes newer artifact strategies super abusive. I mean, look at Urza. Urza shows up and immediately is finding a way to abuse it. Emery finding a way to abuse it. If anything, I think the same reason why Stoneforge Mystic was originally banned for restricting development of cards, I think Mox Opal should have been banned for that too. I mean, realistically, like, Emery with Bobble's already so annoying, but the fact that with Opal it's basically you make a Lotus Petal every turn? Come on. But anyway, like I said, Urza, I would have liked to have seen gone in addition to or instead of some of these. For example, Oko. Honestly, I don't think Ancient Stirrings is going to be on this list at any point now. I think that the Tron decks have kind of stepped a little back. A lot of people are talking about Amulet Titan is going to probably be the best deck. If that's the case, I wouldn't be surprised to see an Amulet ban, or maybe even just a Primeval Titan ban. I would hope not, but we are getting a lot of land support cards recently, as well as new lands that are just really good and feel like Field of the Dead. I wouldn't be surprised to see Primeval Titan get the ban, because I do think he's starting to get. And then now there's the new Dryad in Theros Beyond Death that makes all land types, which now gives you a creature-based way and a enchantment way to do so. And it's possible it might just be too good. Completely possible. So, I'm not entirely sure. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Let me know what you guys think of this banning choices. What would you guys like to see unbanned? What changes would you like to have seen in other formats? Are there cards in Pioneer you'd like to see banned? Because remember now, Pioneer ban lists are going to be coinciding with the rest of the ban lists from now on. Yeah, so what would you guys like to see? So let me know. Let me know in the comment section below. Yeah. Thank you guys very much, and I'll catch you guys next time. Oh, one last thing for those that pay attention to Pioneer and stuff like that. The Walking Ballista Heliod Sun Crown combo, which is essentially a 2-card combo that lets you, if Walking Ballista has a +1/+1 encounter on it, or 2 +1/+1 encounter on it, basically ping your opponent's death because of lifelink, giving +1/+1 counter, ping it, get another counter, blah, blah, blah. They did say they're going to basically kind of put it on a pseudo watch list to watch Walking Ballista. I thought that was worth noting. I didn't see it until I scrolled down there at the very end of the article. I personally think it may be too much, but we'll see. We'll see. I'm glad they're going to let that wait. I don't want this to turn into anything where we have preemptive ban lists. I don't think that sounds very fun. Let a card prove that it's too good before you decide it's too good. So, alright. Thank you guys, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.